Hey guys, welcome back! Robocraft Early Access coverage! This is episode 41, I'm Igneous, and today, completely different build. This is kind of a curveball that I'm throwing to you guys. If you saw the last episode, you're anticipating this one. This is the Tier 7 SMG hover that we built, kind of in a response to the performance of the Thunder Guppy, our Tier 10 SMG hover, which is big and intimidating. It has lots of guns, but it is very, very difficult to control because it's so big and heavy. So I decided that I would mess around a little bit. And also, I have a lot of items for Tier 7 that I haven't bought yet. I can use the tech points from Tier 7, so that's why I chose the tier that I did. Because as I'm learning, just because there's nothing available down that line that I want now doesn't mean there won't be something added to that line later that might be appealing. So it's not a big deal. We're making it Tier 7. You could build this Tier 7 or lower, block for block, if you wanted to, as long as you had access to all the necessary components. And I say that because as soon as you go higher, you run the risk of things being larger and not quite fitting. So if you want to build higher tier, you can. Just be aware that you might have to make some adjustments along the way. Now this is basically the spine. You'll notice that I've done the bridge thing, and way back when I did the early tutorials on how to do the whole armor core thing, I made reference to the blocky football kind of thing, and then I got away from it because I was finding myself having to trim things down to save CPU. So I want to get back into the habit, if not doing all of the tetras, at least doing all of the prisms, having that sort of bridge so that we benefit from that damage loading even more. We're less likely to lose things because we took a hit on one end and a hit on the other and everything in the middle just disappeared. So this is supposed to be an extremely robust frontline fighter with the SMGs, like the Thunder Guppy was supposed to be, that's maneuverable, and most importantly fun to control. The Thunder Guppy is just a little bit too ponderous to be all that fun, without sacrificing the offensive punch that we wanted. Lots and lots of guns that we're able to bring to bear. We're able to afford to lose guns and still have our full offensive power. So it's kind of a tall order, and a lot of it depends on how everything fits together. Now, one thing you'll notice that I'm not doing this time around, and it'll bite me in the butt later, is I'm not doing the layout of the guns. And that's because I'm focused more on making the chassis as compact as possible while fitting everything in. You can see we've got the hover blades, we've got rudders, we've got thrusters, we've got everything on already. And the idea is that I want to get them on as early as I can so that I can get them into as compact a position as possible, so that later on we don't find ourselves having difficulty tucking them away where they're safe, or having them kind of, just sticking out wherever we can find room. And things like the hover blades on the Thunder Guppy never really did kind of satisfy me with their performance because of where we had to put them and the elevation that they had to be on the bot. So it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. You can lay out the key components in the chassis first and do the guns after, or if you want, you can do the guns first and the chassis after. It's just, you have to keep in mind that everything has to fit on there somehow, and there are some ways to put things in place that are better than others. So in this case, we've got a fairly robust beginning to this bot. We've got the hover blades, the middle ones are kind of shifted to the back a little bit because, as is normal, we get more weight in the back than we do in the front because we've got thrusters and rudders and all that other stuff. So we give it that little bit of extra push in the back to try and create some sort of balance. And now, of course, no hover build of mine would be complete without the shroud that protects the hover blades from getting popped off with just stray shots going all over the place. This is probably the one thing that I can see, whatever I do with hovers, that I will never do differently is the shroud. It makes too much sense to ever stop doing it, I don't think, unless there's a component added later that does a better job than I can do with blocks. That's not too often the case. Now, one of the things that'll be absent from this build, just because of actually robo ranking limitations, is electroplates. And it's not that I don't like electroplates or that I think they don't serve a purpose or that armor core does everything better than they can. It's that we run out of CPU, and then we or robo ranking or whatever, and then we can't put them on by the time we get things built the way we want them to be. So if you want to change things around on this and put some electroplates on, there's definitely some places where you could put them on that would make a big difference to survivability, keeping in mind that the top and the sides are going to be taken up entirely by guns. So don't get it in mind that you're going to just throw some electroplates on the top or the sides without doing some pretty significant reworking of the gun placement by the time we're done here. Now this is going to be split up into 3 episodes. I should mention this now, because it was either do 3 kind of 15-ish minute episodes that are pretty easy to digest. You can follow along with them, watch the video, do your thing, and then when the video's over, play around with the stuff, make changes, adjustments, whatever, and then the next episode comes out and you can continue on. Some people prefer longer episodes, but they can get by with shorter. Other people, they kind of need the shorter episodes, and if they're too long, they just can't make any use of them. So we're going to go on the slightly shorter side for these. We'll get through it. We'll get it done, and then after this, we're going to take what we learned from this, and we're going to apply it to a Tier 10 build. And there's actually going to be a bit of a surprise with regards to the future of this build as well. As you can see, we're kind of building out, doing our best to keep things as compact as we can. Get the blocks in close to the hover blades as best we can. Have to do a little bit of fiddling at the ends, the cardinal directions around the hover blades, I guess you could say, to get everything to work. And then, of course, we run out of we always run out of chassis blocks. That's the nature of the beast with this thing. But fortunately, these ones aren't very expensive. We go buy more, edit out the buying. Life is good. You see a lot of redundancy, a lot of redundant connections going in here, and we're fine with that. There's no reason for that to be something we're avoiding. We just have to be a little bit thoughtful about how we do it so that we're not undermining the benefit of the whole system. That's kind of the challenge of building with it, and that's why I like it. That's what makes it interesting, is because there's a decision-making process that goes into placing almost every single block. Some decisions we make are pretty clear, pretty easy to make, or you have a number of different decisions you can make, and all of them are equally good. Sometimes there are better decisions than others, and finding what those might be and noticing them is kind of half the battle. Now, we've been doing this for a while, and I still come across situations after I've built a bot where I tweak things. I could have done things better the second time around, the third time around. So we make adjustments on the fly. But realistically speaking, a bot this size, not too hard to get it kind of squared away in the first go, and then make tweaks for the way things look. For, you encounter certain situations where you notice the same part of your bot is falling off faster than others. You can shore that up. You can make it stronger in those locations. It's not that big of a deal. It's pretty straightforward. I like it because of that ongoing interest component. You take it out into a match, you bring it back to the garage, you actually work on it. It's not this done deal that you've only got a certain limited set of augments that you can apply and then you're screwed. You just kind of have to, all you can do is take it into matches because everything else is done. There's always a little something you can tweak if that's what you feel like doing. So in this case, we've got the 6 hover blades on, and again, all Tier 7, no Tier 8, no Tier 9, none of that stuff. We're going to be using Tier 7 guns, even though there's a bit of minor debate going on as to whether or not Tier 8 guns are Tier 7. I'm not getting into it today. But one of the things that I noticed is that these front hover blades might be better off if they were a little bit farther back and a little bit farther in. Now, I know there's a risk that you take when you place 2 components on the same block. If that block gets destroyed, you lose both of them. Not necessarily a bad thing with hover blades, because if you start losing things on wonky sides, then the whole bot kind of tends to shift and becomes very, very difficult to control. Now, I'm not using that as an excuse to do it in a way that's less than ideal. I'm just saying that there's merit to doing it both ways. I wouldn't want all of my hover blades set up like this. I wouldn't want them all in pairs on the same block. But in this case, we're going for a little bit more compact. So bringing them back and in a little bit, especially on the front, made a lot of sense. And I'm willing to risk the loss of having the front ones knocked off because they're all on that one block. We can take extra steps to protect that single block. That's not a big deal. But again, for a frontline fighter, it's very important that we be able to move and move reliably. And if things start getting damaged and we lose the ability to move reliably, that's bad news. That's what I learned with the Thunder Guppy, is you just get yourself in situations where your mind is saying go somewhere else and the bot is saying no. It's just that simple. The bot says, we're not going anywhere. It's not a very good situation to be in. So we're hoping to cure that with this time around. And like I say, this is mostly trying to rethink what we did with the Thunder Guppy, get the same outcome, or at least the goals that we were trying for with the Thunder Guppy. Highly robust, lots of guns for their redundancy, highly survivable, that we can take into matches and just get in the front lines and mix it up. And if we don't feel like doing that, we've always got the plasma hover. Sit in the back and lob. So now making sure that I get these in early, get some thrusters to assist with the turning. I kind of like the fun factor with the hovers if you can get them to drift. I just don't like it when they start drifting and they don't stop. So it's good to have some thrusters on the front facing towards the inside or facing towards the outside. It doesn't matter. As long as you've got a couple, because it helps spin the front of the bot around whenever you want to turn and increases turn performance. So in this case, basically everything except for the guns is on the bot that we need. We can always add things later if we decide that we've got the CPU and the robo ranking that we can spare it. But realistically, now it's time to be looking at things and saying, okay, well, is this as robust as I can get it before I start putting the guns on? Because if we make it flimsy and we put the guns on and we run out of CPU, there's always that crunch time decision where you're like, do I sacrifice guns to make it beefier? Because I really like all the guns that I have on it. So in this case, we're going to make it beefy, and we're going to do our best to get all the guns that we want on it anyways. You can see it's starting to look pretty beefy on the front. The whole idea here, again, is you're presenting a profile to the enemy that draws their attention to something that you really don't care about, which is this big honking front panel that's a very inviting target that people love to shoot at, but everything else is on the top or on the sides or inside. So we can soak a bit of damage on the front, and while they're shooting at that, we can be shooting at other things on their bot that they can't really afford to lose, hopefully. That's sort of the idea. So we're gonna, you can see the gun mounts starting to go in now. And once we get the gun mounts on, basically it's just filling in the details, making the most of what we can with the CPU and the robo ranking we've got. But you'll notice that the process of putting the gun mounts in place is very, very similar to what we did with the Thunder Guppy, is we're kind of putting them in and we're doing our best to build around them so that we're giving as much protection to that one single block the gun is on as we possibly can. So from all sides, if we can manage it, and also, more than one block between the gun and the blocks that are going to be taking the initial burst of damage. So with that in mind, you can just kind of watch what we're doing here for the rest of the episode. It's only about a minute and a half left. The next episode will focus more on the gun mounts. We'll start getting some guns on, and then the third episode will be kind of finishing touches. We'll take a look at what's what, and then we'll unveil the sneaky surprise. So if you want to be notified when I add those videos, you can always subscribe to my channel. You can also follow me on the social media. Links for that are in the information section below the video. Please leave your comments and feedback. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.